A serial sex offender who was released on parole last year was sentenced today to up to 75 years in prison for yet another attack.
Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker was in court for the sentencing.
Before he handed down the sentence, Ottawa County Circuit Judge John Halsing slammed the Department of Corrections Parole Board for releasing Dujardin last year.
So was this avoidable? Obviously, Mr. Dujardin is solely responsible for these acts, but there's a failure by the authorities as well, and it's inexcusable.
The judge says the failures date back decades. Dujardin has a long history of sexual assaults, got 2 to 15 years for an attack in Grand Haven in 1986. After his release on parole in 1988, he failed to go through mental health counseling as required.
Despite the fact that there was a special condition of parole, the parole board did not revoke his parole or otherwise hold him accountable. Instead, we had victim number 2, and that was a brutal assault.
First-degree rape of a woman at North Beach Park while on parole in 1988. The sentencing judge back then, the late James Townsend, called him a danger to women and a predator. And before his parole hearing in November 2023, that judge's successor urged the parole board to keep him locked up. The parole board released him months later. Then Judge Halsing said even though Dujardin was wearing a tether, parole agents did not do enough to track him.
In spite of the monitoring, nobody ever picked up on the fact that Mr. Dujardin was hanging out at beaches, public areas, parks, and on his phone that was searched, hundreds of images of unsuspecting females were found. In spite of all that, he was not called into account by the parole authorities, and now we have a third victim.
In September 2024, he followed that victim from a park, hit the back end of her car, then attacked her after she stopped at a gas station in Port Sheldon Township. The victim spoke through Zoom at today's hearing. The assistant prosecutor says prison is the only way to keep him from attacking again.
In court, the prosecutor said she hopes Dujardin won't be breathing when he's released from prison. In Grand Haven, I'm Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker.